I have often made a very, very simple statement, and that is that the left, when it comes to, again, I say the left, TM, but when it comes to sort of foreign policy, a lot of lefties are very, very bad, I think, when it comes to foreign policy. I've done sort of other videos about why I think that way and, how I think that thinking has come about. But because now of the victory of Donald Trump, there is yet another area of of thinking where once again the left has a huge dearth in when it comes to its thinking on defense spending. And this has been, I do think it is a vast detriment. I do think it is a very, very big gap where a lot of lefties have very little to say other than some of them might be pacifists and don't want to go to war, but sometimes you have to deal with the reality of that may be the fact. And sometimes, as the ancient saying goes, in times of peace, prepare for war, and in times of war, prepare for peace. And especially, of course, now with Donald Trump, given his statements on NATO, America is now completely unreliable because the cornerstone of all European defense was always NATO, that an attack on one would be bringing in the most powerful, military on the planet, that being America with its air and naval capabilities. And that had always been a cornerstone of European defense. And right now, you are seeing, UK and Germany, we recently signed that pact. I know Scholz is going through a lot of stuff at the moment, but we got problems in the fact that both them and France do have potential leaderships and leaders who might in a few years might also win, and they might be prepared to cut a deal with Vladimir Putin. Just as we've seen Putin be very, very happy with the election of Donald Trump, hoping that maybe, they can bring this situation to an end. Of course, in somewhat more favorable version of for Russia. It's bad times, and we have to sort of realize we are on our own. We are very, very on our own, and we have to sort of reevaluate who our key allies are going to be. And that ultimately is Poland. We have to really, really start talking a lot more with Poland, because there is a country who's been taking their defense for quite a number of years very, very seriously. And we have to start talking more with Poland, not just, France and Germany as well. This is a whole European thing where we have to get sort of more countries involved. But we also have to recognize the fact that there's the ADF, there's Sarah What's-her-face, can't remember her name. She's very sort of bizarrely sort of, pro-Putin appeasement. You've got Marie Le Pen in France. There is a lot of these things that are very worrying, and these leaders of what they would do. And we have to be very, very conscious that depending on how some elections go, remember, Germany's is next year. What direction is that going to go in? It's getting very, very worrying, and getting to very quickly realize we are almost on our own. That we are indeed on our own. Because even if Kamala Harris had won, there would have had to have been a conversation in Europe that at least, let's say the results were turned around. Well, then at least 40 or more % of Americans do not believe in a lot of the post-World War II international institutions that were set up, being, the WTO, the UN, NATO, the EU, they don't respect those institutions. And that would just mean that for us and for Europe, we cannot rely on America because, yes, the Democrats may be in, but they may elect someone else, a Republican, who is increasingly becoming, and that entire party is now increasingly going to be becoming more and more isolationist. They are going to double down on the whole MAGA stuff. I don't think, as I hoped, that if Donald Trump lost, that there would be this pushback against the MAGA movement. That's not going to happen now. Those voices who were anti-MAGA, the Liz Cheneys, the Nikki Haley's, again, although Nikki Haley did bend the knee, but I think she's going to have a lot to say about Trump's international policies and maybe what he's going to do over the next couple of years. We'll see. Chris Christie as well. He stood for the Republican Party on being a very anti-Trump Republican. He isn't going to be listened to. He's going to be thrown to the political wilderness. As probably are most of the anti-Trump Republicans. More MAGA people are then going to get brought into the party, be put in positions of power. We are already seeing him elect his first chief of staff, highly loyal, based on loyalty. We cannot rely on America most of now because of the Republicans, because there's always a risk, well, the Republicans might be in. Any deal we might do with the Democrats, as you saw with Donald Trump when he ripped up the Iran deal, you can't rely on it. You can't rely on a country that's like that. This is why we have to really start talking more and more to Poland. Really, really start talking more with Poland on that. It is, I think, the way to do. Because I think if you look at who is really, I think, potentially going to become the leader in Europe, it would be us, if not for Brexit. I think it would be us, if not for Brexit. I think it would potentially be us right now. However, I think European leadership is going to be more and more, I think, looking to Poland. So we'll see what happens over the next... We'll see what happens over the next couple of years, but... we don't know. We don't know which way and what is going to happen, of course, for the next couple of years. But it's very worrying. Very worrying, because we've talked about the nightmare scenarios of what Trump could unleash. And now we have to live in that world, and we have to live in those consequences. But we are now potentially on our own. And I think if Donald Trump getting in, bringing in those tariffs, this is truly the beginning of the end of Brexit. Like, it really, really is. It really is the beginning of the end of Brexit. So let me know what you think down below. But ultimately, I think that's where we're going to find ourselves in. This is the beginning of the end of Brexit. And thank you very much for Donald Trump, because we are going to have to completely reevaluate our entire stance on the world. Brexiteers are going to have to come to terms with the fact the project failed. Their predictions of the way the world would go has failed. It failed almost immediately as soon as they won the vote, and it's been proving more and more to be a failure as time has gone on. We now have Brexit since 2020. Turns out actually having closer supply lines is better, rather than having these far-flung, globally produced supply lines, which are just completely turbulent to global international pressures. So not only is there going to have to be, I think, a fundamental rethink on Europe, our EU, we are going to end up drifting more and more closer to Europe. That is inevitable. Defense-wise as well, we are probably going to end up talking, I think, certainly a lot more with Poland. Certainly, we've already started that conversation with Germany. We'll see what happens there in the future. France, obviously, I say me, but we, the UK, and of course France, are the only two nuclear superpowers in Europe. There's already talks about extending the nuclear umbrella because the rest of Europe relies on America for its nuclear weapons. What if Trump starts to withdraw those nuclear weapons? It is only the UK and France who then have nuclear weapons. And there's already talks, and people are saying, "Oh, France should extend, its nuclear umbrella." This is what we've got to start to think about as well. And we should think about extending our nuclear umbrella. Otherwise, other countries then turn around and go, "Well, actually, we need nukes as well," which encourages more nuclear proliferation, which means more nuclear weapons can be out there, which means potential, maybe more stuff can go wrong with said nuclear weapons. Something to start bearing in mind. Something to start bearing in mind in conversations, I think, on the left should be having talks about, and what those talks maybe should be about, and especially when it comes to defense spending, what it should be. Should we be really looking at maybe 4%, 4%, let me say it, can't say percent right, 4%, defense spending? Should we be looking at that as maybe as the target, So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, let me know what you think down below in the comments. Like I say, there's the Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So, as always, we'll see you all next time.